people coding isn't as entertaining.
Yeah.
There's a show on Techstars on Bloomberg that does bad, on the Bloomberg network. It's actually on doing startups. Startups aren't sexy. They're not. They're a lot of work. It's not something that you're going to want to sit and watch for probably an hour because they take so long to develop, right? You want to see something big happen, right?
Yeah.
You want to watch someone go from like an idea to like $1 billion company, and that takes 5 years. So,
Yeah.
you know, and the first 3 years of it, they're so slow, and they're not even profitable. No one believes in them. You can't hire anybody. They've been turned down. They've like considered like suicide or something. It's like so rough. Startup life is so rough, but it's made nicer and doable because you're around all these great people, and that's what all these events are like. That's why this event is so great, because you get to hang around and tell these stories and sharing the experience with other people. But then when you go home, like you're all day like working your ass off, and there's a guy right next to you building the same exact product as you normally, and the only thing that separates you two is who can hustle harder. You know, it's not even who has a better product; it's who can work harder.
So is it very competitive?
Super.
But you also see that you can make a lot of connections. So
Yes.
not friends.
No. Everyone's still your friend,
Yeah.
right? Like there's other people that do other hackathons, and I know all of them, and we're still friends, and we'll all end up working with each other in some way, shape, or form, some point in the future, and that's understood. You don't burn any bridges. You always end up working with everybody. But that's not to say if you have a good idea, ideas are cheap, you know. So anyone can do it. There's no barrier to entry for most startups. So for every successful startup, there's like 10 more that are doing the same exact idea that failed. And then you basically see one hit network scale and succeed, and the only difference is who can get there faster so that everyone knows about them, right? That's what wins when you have network scale. And a lot of times that comes down to executing really well, working your ass off, and then selling investors to give you money to help you expand and get bigger and bigger and bigger. If someone else is doing the same exact idea as you and they're working harder, they're going to win. I'll challenge anyone to do a better hackathon than me. So me and my team, we work like all fucking week, you know? Like we kill ourselves to make sure it's the best event out there. And you got to take that in anything you do, in startups, if you want to be successful. And not just a folkpreneur. Fogey. I love that word. Fogey. I think of soup when you say Vietnamese. Yeah.
I have a question. How are you going to deal with cultural differences across the region when you start working on
in the different regions? Tell me more.
You know, there's obviously quite a big difference between the West and the East.
Of Singapore?
Yeah, or just in Asia and say the US.
You guys have like gang wars?
I'm saying, you know, from the US
It's like Central Singapore.
and different countries in Asia.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're expanding into other cities within Asia, you obviously have local organizers working there.
Right.
But, you know, when you then bring them over to Silicon Valley, obviously certain Western management systems or way things work over there don't always translate into the way culturally, say, Asians may work. Is that something that you guys have thought about, or I guess you don't know until you get there, right?
You don't know until you get there, but there's one thing that success looks like, and some cultural difference is not going to let a winner stand in the way of them succeeding, right? So if you're Asian and you like hearing things in a certain way, and some important contact tells you in a different way, you're not going to not work with them because it's different than what you're used to. You're going to find a way to make it work. And normally there's no cultural difference, and things are that hard and challenging, and people are telling you no and turning you down. And you still have to find a way to make it work. But that's what defines success, right? You're going into something that no one believes in. That's how most startups start. And you're crawling and fighting and pushing a boulder up a mountain, and you're making it work. So I can't think of a cultural difference that.
But for example, the culture of failure, where actually Silicon Valley is not an issue.
Yeah.
That maybe for European or an Asian it might be an issue.
Gotcha. Well, no one's going to look down on you if you fail. They're going to look down on you if you wallow and you complain and you talk about all the reasons why it didn't happen. But failure is good, right? Failure is when you learn.
But some people don't accept it the same.
That's true. So you won't get that from us. We're very supportive. But that's true. It's very true. How would you like me to answer? Is that your question?
Maybe that's a great question actually to ask Gwen, in your experience. in your experience with some of the startups here, I mean, do you find that there's more of a reticence towards failure, or do people embrace the fact that maybe the first idea is not a success, but it's the second or the third?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. So for example, at SG, we interview entrepreneurs, right? And there have been people who have failed, shut the company down and stuff like that. So we always pester them to kind of tell us their stories. Like, hey, tell us what you learned from experiences, you know, what stuff you do differently next time. You know, every single time they tell us, they're like, oh, we're not ready to share our story, you know, we're going to keep it on the low and stuff like that. So to me, that's very, very salient. It's very representative of what people kind of see. It's something they want to keep it themselves. They might be willing to share a view on a very friends basis, very, very personal basis. They're not willing to shout it out as much. So I do see that throughout my years of working with entrepreneurs. And that's something that I hope will change, you know, and I think slowly but surely, hopefully something like AngelHack, more and more people just coming in and embracing failure. We've seen PhilCon coming in Singapore. SUTD had the Fail Week. So I think that's slowly starting to change from last year at least. So one way to change it is everyone having elevator pitches, right? Just pitch! 1 minute is fine!
Are you guys, as a whole, like, just show of hands, who here is like scared of looking bad to somebody?
I think everyone is.
Yeah, it's like pride's like a big thing, saving face, right? It's like a big thing here. Fuck.
I'm Krishna. I mean, like, I was wondering, what do you guys think about, like, the fact that, like, you know, over in Asia, let's exclude China because that is totally closed in that sense. But why don't we have like Facebook or Amazon or something similar to that scale? You know, how come we don't scale that well as opposed to like companies from Silicon Valley?
There's a couple different reasons. It's a little complicated, but in general, I'll break it into three. One, people typically it's so fragmented here. So the fragmentation makes it really, really hard to make something that you can get traction from the whole group from, the whole region. And your community is so small that, you know, everything starts local. When you start local in the US, your market is 350 million. You start local in Singapore, your market is like, what, like 8 million?
5. 5.2.
And that's not 5.2 that use technology and are early innovators, right? So that's one reason why you just don't. It's harder to get all these users, and when you have a huge base to choose, when you're marketing with 350 million people, if you get 1% to use it, you have a really good sample population. If you get 0.1% to use it, you know if you're doing right, wrong. You can get like great, you can hook up some metrics to it. You know, you get your analytics going. You can see what's working, what's not. If you're doing it in Singapore, it's so hard to just, you know, it's such a small market to hit that. You have the language barriers. Then assuming you have the best product ever, it's working, you hit it, and you got it in Singapore, you have these cultural differences all around. So you got to find a culture that like assimilates with the product the same way. These American products, right? They've had so many people use it, test it, figure out what's good and bad. We're in an open ecosystem, open economy. People are collaborative. It's easy to set up networks and partners. So they build up these huge, huge products just in the U.S. and they expand like to Europe. By the time they get to Asia, there's so much traction and push behind and so much support. And they figured out so many of these issues. You know, then they just like partner with someone who's like, yeah, we'll help push it, and there's no risk, right? So, who doesn't like helping a winner? You know, helping out someone in a startup, you know, it's a riskier situation. Asia's very risk sensitive.
And let me add to that is that so why isn't there a Facebook yet in this region? I think I'm hopeful for this region that in about 5 years, hopefully we have something, because we've really seen the ecosystem grow across Southeast Asia especially. And one thing I feel is really, really lacking is sophistication. And I've seen that grow. So to give you an example, about 2 years ago, I was speaking to some young kids who were developing an event app, something. And so I was asking them, okay, what's your product about, what are you trying to solve, who are your competitors, and all blah, blah, blah. And I named a few players in the space from US and Asia. And they're like, who are these people? They don't know. And I'm like, okay, it's fine if you don't know. How long have you been working on your product? They were like, 1 year. So I'm like, this is ridiculous. You've been working 1 year on a product and you know nothing about the space. You're developing a vacuum, which doesn't work. So, but I've seen that change now. It's getting better. People are just reading more globally, in terms of following US media as well as Asian media, just talking to more people, having events. So it's changing. So in terms of having a Facebook or Google, it's a company that has massive impact and scale across the world, let's keep our fingers crossed. So I'm hopeful for Asia.
So how, I mean, maybe talking out of terms of Jeffrey jump in, being the expert in the room probably, but how do you bridge the funding gap? There's a clear arbitrage that no one wants us to bridge, which is stacks of funding in Silicon Valley, all chasing deals. Lots of ideas bubbling here, but somehow the two never.
I mean, you're talking about two issues, right? One, you're talking about ideas first, quality teams, ideas. Second is liquidity. Because here in Asia, you don't have liquidity. You don't have exits. You have no MNCs really acquiring companies. So angel investors are not willing to invest. They can't see the money return in a few years. You have people, entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, looking to maybe start a company. They're like, okay, maybe they can't get rich in 2 years. They're like, okay, no way. Let me go back to my banking job, right? So that's one thing. So to close the funding gap, yeah, if you're looking to raise 1 million and above, it's really difficult. So what we tell people now is, you know what? If you need 1 million and above, go to US or go to China if you want. So there's no closure yet. But hopefully that more private investors would come in. But yeah, Jeffrey is from Golden Gate Ventures. He's an investor.
Hey.
Any thoughts to contribute? We're like Tai Chiing the talk here.
Most ideas suck.
It's true. We call them entrepreneurs. They just chase grants instead of ideas and actual customer revenue. So, but yeah, like again, I see it changing. It has changed.
Yeah, but hackathon help that.
Yeah.
It's a global.
It forces people to work.
Yeah,
it forces people to work together. So it definitely
how do you
helps.
drag the funding over? There's a lot. I talk to a lot of VCs in the US. Their problem is they don't understand Asia. We make enough money here. We don't need Asia. It's a rounding error. It's always right here as an answer.
So we have Golden Gate Ventures, which
Yeah,
is also kind of Silicon Valley
We
based.
have some great exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
But on the whole,
From what I understand, Japan and Korea also will invest a lot, and they're more risky. I haven't figured out how much they invest over here yet, but that's my understanding of the region. It's easier to get investment from people over there for some reason, even down here. I know.
Can I just ask a question at this point about how much time people should be spending on the business model versus just pure?
Sure, like the lean startup thing, right? You should validate that you have something that people want. And then after you validate that you have something that people want, you should validate that there's not something else out there currently that gives that to them that they understand and like. Because if you're building something to compete with something that people already use, it's going to be really, really hard to succeed and pull them away from it. Unless they just hate it, Like people get so frustrated with PayPal, right? So all these other payment processors came out. Now PayPal's, so a lot of other people succeed. So, but then you see some people build things that people don't even want, and they build these whole things out. And not on the business side, on the tech side, and those fail too. And then you see people that like do this whole business plan thing. In a startup, that means almost nothing. Like to build out like the full business plan and all that stuff and have all, I mean, that's what you do as a business person because you don't know what else to put your time into. You should put your time into finding developers. Literally going to universities and pitching your idea and like looking like an idiot and trying to talk to these like, kids and be like, come work with me. That's where your time should be going. It's recruiting. Business plans mean very little. I think that's true here too.
Are you advocating that it's an 80-20 rule, 80% development, 20% business modeling? For
Yes.
Business model? Or are you advocating separate the role? Keep the developers on product and get somebody who can build a model for?
So I would go 80-20 rule of development and business. You just have to do idea validation. A very, very simple idea validation too. You don't have to like the whole, I'm not that big of a fan of the whole like lean movement. Where it's people get so far into the lean movement, they do lean for like 6 months to a year. And what's that teach you? It's the same place you start out. You normally can get the answer in a week, or in a couple days. It's just so challenging to do development side that people get caught up in the other side because it feels like they're doing improvements. You should just start hustling. Start hustling for recruiting.
You said your audience was AngelHack in more than 25 cities.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that Silicon Valley is the perfect ecosystem,
Yes.
For you, what's the most promising one you've seen?
Promising?
Yeah.
Toronto.
Yes?
Yes. Toronto is super startup friendly right now. You can take your startup to Toronto and they will give you a freaking visa. They'll give you a Canadian visa. They're taking 100 people a year right now. It's awesome. If you're a Canadian citizen, or you have a Canadian startup, more than like 50% or 30% Canadian, you'll get a 75% tax rebate for what you pay your developers or anyone technical on your team. It's awesome. It means you basically have like super, super developer friendly team. They have trouble hiring business people because they're so expensive there. You can have like 5 developers on your team and only, be spending $150,000 a year. It's crazy. And good developers. Waterloo makes some of the best developers in the world, just north of Toronto.
And outside North America, because we know that part of the ecosystem is the exit, and it's the buyers. So from Toronto to access Facebook or eBay, it's one thing. Then when you're in Asia or in Europe or whatever, it's like, where are you going to exit? And that's part of now the big problem of this ecosystem from Singapore to Berlin is that where are the buyers? At the end,
Right.
It's like you need to take the plane and go to the Valley or to New York. So
right.
From what you've seen, where you think it's going to be the outside North America, where does it might emerge?
Here's how it works. Don't plan for an exit. Plan on building something that people want and will continue.
No, I'm not saying this, but I'm talking about the ecosystem.
Yeah. So am I, right? So there's some companies out there like Foursquares and shit like that. Like I don't still fully understand it. Like unprofitable, burning shit tons of money. The technology will completely change like it does every 5 years. I think Foursquare is actually a loser. But apparently they're like too big to fail, almost. So people are really happy with them, and they're supposed to get like a big exit at some point, somewhere, somehow. Maybe that's just like a network scale thing, a user-based thing, whatever. Anyhow, I'm a big fan of building things that people want, and then figuring out who your customer is, the person that pays you, right? So you're basically building a community, and either the community is buying the product, or someone is so into trying to communicate to your community, right? So our community is developers, all these sponsors want to talk to developers, right? So that they'll pay you to communicate with your community. So those are your two customers. Or your social impact and just doing good in the world. And if you're doing that and you're doing it right and sustainably, you don't need an exit. I don't think startups should build for an exit, but it's nice. And investors want an exit. So maybe that's not what they want to hear. But who the fuck cares? Build something that people want. Build something that makes people happy, build something that solves a problem. And you'll feel good of what you've built, even if you don't have a big exit or make a ton of money. I don't think I don't think most people that work in the ecosystem think they're going to get rich. They just think that they're going to do something they love and care about.
This I agree, and that's fundamentals. But my question was like, out of North America, even here for people in Singapore, if we should take an example out of North America, what we should look at from what you've seen?
An example of an exit?
No, example of a nice ecosystem. You think it's going to be next outside North America? Because
outside North America? So the best one that Singapore could be would be Chile. Chile's awesome. So, and what it's Chile's government, and I think it's a problem in Singapore right now because Singapore wants to educate more Singaporeans to be technological and not import, I think, as much because there's like something going on right now with like race, right? Like they want less expats coming in, right? Something like that. I don't know. So you have to have tech talent. And so what Startup Chile did is, or the Chilean government, is they made it super, super founder friendly for anyone to move there from outside of Chile and to get money from our government. We will give you money even if you're not Chilean. Free money, 0% equity. Come to our country, build your startup here, and then eventually when you start hiring people, you'll make our economy better. Beautiful. Beautiful. Who the fuck doesn't want to go get free money? They're lacking on their mentorship. That's hard, right? Because you need people that have experience. But as far as getting the talent, they're getting talent. I don't know that many people that are moving to Singapore right now to raise funds. That's what I believe the community should be envisioning though, is a way to bring the top people in the world here. So this is a great financial hub. The next challenge will be making it a great startup hub. So it's going to take a lot of government support. From what I've seen, the government here is set up to support the ecosystem. They want to. They have a bunch of big programs and grants. There's money here to support it. They just have to start, figuring out some steps that bring the world together here. Outside, I'm a big believer in so there's two ways to do it. You either bring outside in, or you build up technology from within. So starting a new engineering schools. You guys have 3 schools here, and they all have computer science programs. But what happens if you're outside of school and just want to like learn computer science, right? So like a big school just to make people developers. I'm a big fan of developers. Or just teaching the proper things that the ecosystem needs. Or if there's a problem of failure, celebrating failure and having government get involved, like FailCon. So there's all these problems, right, that will arise, and the more and more that your community can help make it better, the stronger you guys will be as a whole. And that's another reason why you guys shouldn't be scared to talk, because you should all be working together, because you're all in this like struggle and this fight together. So like, who cares what other people think of you, right? Your success is determined by what you do, and the help you get from others. It's all relationships.
I have a question. You earlier mentioned that Silicon Valley is really startup friendly, people are there to help you succeed. So assuming you're driven, energetic, really hardworking, you want to make an impact on the world, maybe you have a few ideas of your own, maybe you don't, but you go to Silicon Valley.
Sure.
I mean, number one, you said that don't talk to developers about your ideas, listen to what they have to say, right?
Yes.
Because that differentiates you. But then, I mean, you talked about brain network and something else that differentiates you. I was just wondering if you could give us some ideas of what are some of the things you could possibly bring to the table if you're not a developer and you're not supposed to give your idea, so to speak. And so that's kind of the first question. And the second question is, so assuming you relocate and you get to a place just like yourself, but you're American, I presume, and we're Singaporeans or otherwise, how do you thrive? And I mean, and I know with the US you have visa issues. So are people even willing to consider working with you, or how does it work? Because I'm presuming a kind of long distance relationship type thing is not going to work.
Right. So you asked like 6 questions.
I'm sorry. Take it whatever way you want.
I'm just trying to remember. So I think, from what I understand, you guys have really, really great developer ecosystems really close by, like Jakarta, Manila, Bangkok. Really, they're starting to develop pretty well. So I would start there as far as looking for someone to work with. You move to Silicon Valley, you're right. If you go to Silicon Valley and you're looking for a co-founder as a non-citizen and with very little offer, you have very little offer. The people that succeed in Silicon Valley as expats, whatever it means for a foreigner, right? You have 6 months. You have 6 months to make shit work. Then you got to leave for 2 weeks. Then you got 6 more months to come back and make it work. So when you come, you want to have your shit together. You don't want to come with a dollar and a dream, just that. You want to. It is a little bit more challenging. It's not undoable though. You can do it. But I would find a developer locally here that understands you, right? You really have to think of what your value prop is. If you either have a great network, like you have a great family and you guys have money and you can, they'll invest in the startup you do. I mean, shoot, who doesn't want to build something where someone's already investing? It's great. If you have some kind of competitive advantage or domain expertise, that works really well. So let's say you used to work for the biggest recycling company in Singapore and you understand how that works here. And there's something completely broken in it that no one would know unless they worked in that industry, and you have some context in that industry, and your startup has to do with that. You don't want to jump right into this is my idea and build it with me, but any good human being, if you're listening to them, is going to ask you what's going on and listen to you. So right, you look what would wow you? You want to find your wow points, and you want to be humble with them too. But at the same time, you want to get them across. And when you finally do move to the valley, when you visit, because you're not moving, you will be able to move if I think you get enough money, right? So if you raise enough investment, I think there's some kind of something where you get to stay longer. And startup visa, in the next 3 years, we'll see immigration reform in the U.S. So if you're a good startup, you will be able to move there. It's not far. But you definitely want to have your, more formalized. There's a lot of foreigners in Silicon Valley, and a lot of them are from Paris. I don't know why. It's this huge, there's so many Parisians. They have a crew of 50, and they roll around to all of our events, and they're so fun and friendly, but they're all Yeah, they're all like just trying to like do a startup and like they don't have it, so they're just like drinking and hanging out. All the time. And they're really fun, but they're like wallflowers.
There's too many there. Just pretend actually.
Oh, yeah, the breeze, you guys are everywhere.
We just pretend
Yeah.
that we have companies and we drink wine.
You like talk shit about us all behind our backs, you know? Like, it's great. So,
Just to say something, before you said the hackathon will be June 1st, from how it's set up, so at the end you present that to some investors?
yes.
So it's going to be the case here as well?
There'll be investors here. We'll fly some people from Silicon Valley out, so...
So it's US investors bringing in, just to understand?
No, some US investors.
Okay. And some local?
Yes.
Okay. So it's going to be a mix?
Yes. With any luck, we'll get some people from Golden Gate VC to come. Most ideas suck. Start a meme.
No, because I asked this question because, and maybe Golden Gate, it's about, we know that, I mean, from what I heard, it's like that culturally, a venture capital firm in Silicon Valley think completely differently, the vision, how they're going to invest compared to Asian venture capitals. So that's also, from the cultural part, it's going to be interesting maybe during the hackathon to see, based on the presentation of the product, how different investors are going to react from a US-based perspective, from an Asian perspective.
You're right.
So,
That's a good question.
do you already have some experience about that? Or?
No, but we use a platform for the judging that we built, the Hackathon.io platform. So you get individual feedback from each judge. You know who sent it to you. So you'll see those different viewpoints. If you win our competition or not, like that doesn't define like your startup success, right? We're just there to help you. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it. We're just holding your hand a little bit. So the point of the hackathon is to get validation for your idea, to show. So Silicon Valley investors typically want to see a $1 billion company. They want to see something that might not make money in the beginning, but they can get the network, get everyone in. It's a big idea. It's called a home run, right? So they'll invest in 100 companies just to get one home run, and they'll make their whole portfolio profitable. That's the name of the game in Silicon Valley. In Asia, it seems more about, I want a company that makes money. I don't care if it makes a lot of money. I just want to, I want to win. I just want to go up. I don't have to get a home run. I just want to get a winner. I don't know. I don't know what's better or worse. I do know that big ideas are just as hard as small ideas, or maybe small ideas are just as hard as big ideas. So think big, right?
Do you think the U.S. investment strategy, philosophy, is transportable here to Asia or not?
I don't know many U.S. investors that are investing in Asia if they're not moving to the U.S. But we'll bring over U.S. investors so you guys can meet them. And one day when you want to come to the U.S., you'll have some contacts. That's how we can be helpful for you, is giving you a network, giving you access. You could build something for just Singapore and then try to make it in the Asia Pac, which is nice. But if you want to do the big idea, you build it from the get-go. You want it to be around the globe. Like you're thinking, how does this work in the U.S.? Like I'm going to build it here in Singapore, but it's going to be the same product everywhere, and the same need, right? So if you're fulfilling a need that helps people out on, I don't know, something local to Singapore like rainy days, like an umbrella app or some shit. I don't know. That's a bigger problem here than in other places, but it can still be, if you make it, it rains everywhere, right? So if you make it with that in mind, that like it's something that everyone should have for that rainy day, for some use case, you'll be really successful. And someone from the US will invest in you, but it'll be to invest in you to bring it over to the US. It won't be to invest in you to build it out here, or only out here. Eventually everyone wants you to move to the global market. That's where the money is. VCs are all about money, by the way. Maybe not in Asia, but I mean, they don't care if you're building something that helps mankind too much. Those are passion investors. Those are angels. VCs typically, it's all about making dough. If you do something that makes dough, they're happy. And if you do something that's nice and warm and fuzzy, like they don't care.
But in the US, you have more this market share approach or long term. You can see some company go Series C, Series D, 80, 100 million, still not making money.
Yes.
And
Foursquare.
guy did.
Right? I fucking hate those guys.
But most of the time, some of them do amazing IPO or trade sales. Where outside the US, it's really hard to find investors who have the balls to say 50, 80. But at the same time, we have market size equivalent today. China, India, all those great markets.
Right.
They are huge. And at some point, they're becoming even bigger than the US soon.
You need to find local partners, right? So you're just not going to build anything that big just in the city. You have to think, how are you going to build outside the city? If you want to go to China, right, do one of these exits, or the US or Russia, right, you're only going to really be able to expand there with local partners, or by you moving there and building it out. That's how it works. You know, I don't even think that anyone can come to China. Like China's, by the way, I would never build anything in China. Their job is to steal your company. The whole fucking thing is set up rigged. So like, we're gonna put my family member on your board, and then they're gonna like steal all your trade secrets. We're gonna build it over here, or we're just gonna like little by little like put more and more people on your board, and then kick you out and own the whole company, and like they're just like kill your hosting service so you can't operate in there. Does anyone know the Tiananmen Square thing? Like with Foursquare, right? So everyone used Foursquare to just kind of like give praise to that event, and they killed Foursquare for a year. It had nothing to even do with Foursquare. They did all this work to build it up inside China, and then they just shut the whole service down for a year. Just killed it, just out of nowhere, right? It had nothing to do with this whole little mini event. Yeah. Is that helpful?
I just have one question, sorry. So it's not related to, I think we kind of covered on the VCs and angels and what they think about Asia. I was wondering what young people in Silicon Valley think about Asia and think about Singapore. The reason is one of my friends here, she's half Singaporean, half American, and she had this great business plan and she already has found investors, but she can't find a CTO. Not because we don't have great talents here, but just because she can't find someone with enough experience and maybe confidence to take on this role. So what would it take to attract some talents from the Silicon Valley, and do they have an interest in moving to Asia, or they're just happy there?
Okay. It doesn't happen very often, where someone comes to Silicon Valley and says, move to Singapore. And it doesn't happen very often where someone has a great idea and funding, and the developers are scared to work, are intimidated by that. If you have funding, the intimidation factor goes way down. Again, I go back to, from my understanding, what I would do in this ecosystem is I would go to the colleges, and I would hang out there and give a talk there, and ask the computer science professors to help me find someone with similar, they know their students, so this is what I want to build. Like, do you know anyone that's interested in these things, or can I give a talk or send an email? Or I would go to Jakarta or Manila, or maybe you can even find one of these guys on Odesk, one of these websites where you get to work remotely with them, and hire them that way and start talking to them. And then, I mean, you guys are AsiaPac, right? So just fly over there. Like, build a little bit of a relationship and go fly over and meet them. And you have to invest in this stuff. It's the hardest part of the business. Right? Apart from the actual business, the shit that you have to deal with just to get there. It's again why startups aren't sexy. Like, they're a lot of work. So that's what I would advise your friend is to, I would hustle locally. It's gonna be a lot easier to find a local contact and developer